Hi guys, we are going to go scuba diving here at Catalina Island. This is off the coast of LA. This is late July 2014. This ecosystem is often called a kelp forest, and this is exactly why. You're going to see here all sorts of examples of the kelp that grows down there. These bright orange guys, they are everywhere. You'll actually notice that we go deeper, the sunlight gets filtered out. Sorry, as I adjust my goggles here. Um, the deeper we go, those orange fish won't have as bright a color because the light just doesn't filter through quite as much. So this is our starting point at the buoy. Our guide here was Ruth, and she was by far our favorite dive guide so far. She was amazing.
She was our little mama.
She
She
did.
babied me a little bit, but I needed it. So we're just a few feet down. I think we're only about 20 feet down there. She's checking that we're okay. And then immediately she'll point. Well, we're fascinated by the kelp.
The camera was strapped to my wrist, and so a few times I apologize, but I'm right-handed, so I have to adjust my ears and my goggles for the pressure that builds up the deeper you go down. At this point, that kelp is probably 20 to 30 feet long.
We've been down for just a few seconds, and we're already seeing our first bat ray on the trip. Overall, we saw probably 10 or so bat rays. It's a stingray, but instead of being like perfectly rounded, it comes to kind of a point on its sides, and so it kind of has a bat-like appearance. And apparently it was mating season, and so the males were quite active, running around, trying to impress the female that we found later on the trip. We'll point her out when we get to her. And so we were told that the kelp is able to grow as much as 120 feet tall and anywhere from 1 to 3 feet a day when the conditions get just right. So this stuff is extremely quick to grow. There's another bat ray floating around.
The kelp is very sensitive to temperature changes. Ruth was telling us how even just a few degrees difference from its normal optimal growing temperature and the whole thing will die off.
They're actually predicting that because of man-made climate change, they're predicting pretty much all of this reef to die off by the end of that summer. And it's kind of sad to see so much life wiped out in such a short amount of time. Kind of hoping for the best, but the water is fairly cold. We're in 7 millimeter neoprene wetsuits. And this is actually one of their warmer days. They said usually you need gloves and a helm on or a face mask, and we didn't need that today. It was a little bit warmer out, so usually the water's pretty chilly, but it still is, but it's not 55 degrees, it's 65 degrees.
So in this little area, she said there's a little local hanging out in there. That's a moray eel in the cave. You might recognize moray eels. It was actually Flotsam and Jepsam from The Little Mermaid who hung out with Ursula. So that's why I was amazed that it just sat there looking at us through this little cave. They're kind of similar to sharks in the fact that they do not have good eyesight, and so they will bite first and ask questions later. So that's why we kept some distance away.
Yeah, their teeth are very, very sharp. They're good at... We were going to insert a picture of a moray eel, so we did a little Googling around, and the first picture we found was humans who had been bitten by one, and there was large chunks of flesh missing, so...
They are vicious. One thing that's really neat about this kelp, it naturally grows its own little air pockets. If you notice here, on those strands, those little bulbs... Hi, Bat Ray. There's a little air pocket that grows on the kelp, and
about
they're
the size of a golf ball, I'd say.
Yeah.
Maybe a little smaller.
We found some up on the beach at the Santa Monica Pier, and the bulbs are actually very tough. You actually had to put a little bit of pressure on them to pop them. What's significant about them, though, is that's what's keeping all that kelp so buoyant. That's how it's going to reach up and reach for sunlight, and so it can sustain this ecosystem. For example, here, this little guy, he's just eating the kelp, as happy as he could be.
So our guide turns around and checks on us again and again.
You really start to see how this is truly a forest.
And I mentioned we're 50 feet down, so colors are starting to get a little more gray, and light filters out from all the water above you, and cameras don't do a real great job at capturing what is left. And then so I had a cramp, and underwater it's hard to stop and balance and everything, so the guide comes back to help me out. You pretty much have to do a buddy system and stretch like you're in gym class or whatever, and have somebody come help you out. So as she's helping relax my leg, Tracy gets to hold still for a second, get some of our better shots of the trip. You'll finally actually see how much you see the fish life that's going on behind us, and you can see the kelp is
It's
stories and stories tall, and we're just these little humans in a big ocean here. Here in just a second, as the camera pans around, you'll see how much life there is down here. There, fish all around us, and the little air pockets there on the kelp.
holding it up so it can do its photosynthesis. Look at all those tiny fish. At this point, again, we're about 50 feet below the surface.
A little bit for 50, 55 feet. For this dive, we topped out at
That's a sheep's head fish, by the way.
about 60 feet down. 65 feet down is all we went on this trip, which is, I believe, technically all our certification allows, but it was as deep as you need to go. We only have one tank of air, and so you only get about a 45-minute trip or so, depending on how labored your breathing is and how easy you can relax and everything.
One thing to notice, the kelp will sway and dance as the waves are pulling it towards the shore and everything. And it was so easy to forget that we too are being tossed around by the current. You just completely relax and move with it. It's very unique. The kelp, when we found it, when it drifts ashore, it's this real kind of deep orange, burnt orange kind of color. It's surprising that it's not green, it's not yellow, it's kind of this weird, I guess, mix of it. But again, growing at this depth, that's perfect for picking up the correct wavelengths from the sun, again, for its photosynthesis.
Yeah, it's not bright green like plants on surface. There's another ray, and this one gets fairly close to us and kind of shows off. And we found out why he was so bold is not far ahead. We'll find the female. The guide, of course, spots it for us. We were too overwhelmed by everything. If you look real close in the rocks there, it was clear in person, I promise. But there is a female in there.
Get a still shot for you here in just a sec.
She's resting on the rocks. The little dot at the bottom is her tail, and
so she's facing away from us.
Yeah, facing up the rock, and she's kind of hard to see there, but she was clear enough to see in the day or in person.
So Ruth signals cool.
So I've switched. I'm now the cameraman. So when it's all shaky, it's my fault. And so the guy trying to get our attention, we came across a pretty rare
giant black bass.
Another ray right there.
I think it's a black bass.
Black bass. Pretty rare.
Giant sea bass.
They get up to like 800 pounds, and they're pretty darn rare. She said she's seen about 3 or 4 of them in the 1,500 dives.
She says, "Watch me." He was right up there. There was a big freaking fish, and lo and behold, it pooped.
And so you'll see a little bit of this particulate in the water here. That's fish poop, and
There's a lot.
Yeah, right there. You just swim through it because it's all you can do.
What's interesting though is how it doesn't even go to waste. Even though all that happened, lots of smaller fish came in to get whatever nutrients were left over for it.
There I check. We are 57 feet down at this point.
So we have to always check your air supply.
Tracy says she's got 2,000 psi left in her tank. That's from an original
3,400?
That's a little high, but yeah, 3,000, 3,200, somewhere in there. So here we're getting near the bottom. You can tell the colors have changed a little bit. Just dark blue is all that's left. There's not much color that can
This
be
right
picked
here.
up by the camera.
This is a boat. That was her signal there for the boat. The top part here is about 65 feet below the surface. The far end of it was around 90 feet below the surface. However, that's beyond our certification level, and so for our safety and our training, we did not go much further down.
Yeah, it just wasn't worth it too. There's nothing down that much further worth seeing. The colors get darker unless you have a light. Really no purpose to it. 60 feet is good
Plenty
for
to see.
us. Yep.
I mean, you can see how clear the water is also.
Yeah, visibility is one of the big things about scuba diving, and especially in Kansas. There's 3 or 5 feet of visibility in most of the lakes, or less around here, and even down to like Table Rock, which is one of the better lakes, 10, 15, maybe 20 feet. But here it's 50, 70 feet of visibility. It's not the water clarity that's going to stop you from having a good time. So Tracy gets a little tangled. I had to signal to her, and of course, again, the camera's attached to my wrist, so I'm going to try and wave at her. Get a rocky
No big deal.
shot. So there's the kind of a forest view. Now I give the camera back to Tracy.
Hi, everybody.
But we're starting to our ascent. The boat that we just touched was as low as we went, at like 60, 65 feet.
And again, just like when we were in Cozumel, there's just life everywhere, and life will grow wherever it has the opportunity to. I don't recall the year they said the boat sank, but you saw how much life had grown on this big metal body that's now resting at the bottom of the ocean.
There's our guy telling me to let a little bit of air out of my vest. I've inflated it too much, and I'm drifting up to the surface too quick. So
Buoyancy is very difficult to control.
yeah, I struggled with it for this one especially, but she was on me, like I said, little mama. Put a little in, take a little out, put a little in, take a little out. See there, I have too much, and I'm still just shooting up towards the surface.
Unbelievable to think that all that kelp can disappear with just a couple temperature
Couple degrees, yeah. They were expecting the whole thing to be gone by the end of the summer. But like we said, it dances in the water, and me kicking it around is... So you want to do a selfie? So we do a selfie.
Because you have to do a selfie.
Yeah, I have to do a underwater.
It's not every day you get a shot like this.
So, wave to the camera. Guide's flagging us down. So we follow along. There's another of the Garibaldi. And we still remember very bright yellow, yeah. We're coming up near the surface again, so colors are returning.
And those bright orange guys, when our boat very first docked and we're walking along the pier, oh hello.
The ray right on top of us, and our guide barely even saw it. And Tracy's got it off camera, and I kind of yell at her, going, "It was right there."
I tried. It was hard.
You use your hand to kind of flutter and keep yourself upright if you're a bad scuba diver like us, and so.
Well, we're not bad. We're just out of practice.
Yeah. So our hands were not the stablest camera shot, but.
I was just going to make an aside that those bright orange fish you could see very, very clearly just from standing alongside the shore. I was surprised at their range of habitat. All the way up to the very, very shore, way down past the 60-foot mark. They were everywhere.
There's a pretty good shot of the floor underneath us and how it's alive too. And unfortunately, as a scuba diver, you don't want to disrupt anything, and so if you like when I had my foot cramp, well, you can't just stand on the bottom and stretch it out. You're crushing some of the life that's very delicate around here, and so you try not
here,
to.
She's pointing out that tiny bluefish. That's the baby of that orange guy. We actually learned later when we went to an aquarium, those orange Garibaldis, they have 3 life stages. One is that tiny little blue and orange, and it's about the size of a pinky. And then there's like a mid-level kind of juvenile size, and it's orange with some blue flecks on it, and then obviously as they mature, they turn fully orange. There's a rockfish here, as Glenn was talking about how sensitive the floor is. Little rockfish sitting here.
Yeah, we kicked up some of the dirt on the bottom, so he's a little hard to see there. But there he is, hanging out, hiding, doing his thing.
But you can tell the water's getting much shallower here, and so the waves and the surge is starting to pull us a little bit more strong.
Yeah, you'll see
Right around here.
the kelp.
Oh, here, I have water in my goggles, so that's all you have to do. Breathe out your nose, and it gets clear.
The water, or the air out of your nose displaces the water in your mask and forces the water out. And so it's not a big deal for a scuba diver to completely take their mask off underwater, put it right back on, and clear all the water out. And if it's ever fogged up or if it gets knocked off, it's not a day-ending event. You grab it, you put it back on, you clear out the water. It's one of the things you practice often.
I will say, one of the first times I was able to do it, it was the biggest mental accomplishment because I have to try to not panic. And really that's all it is just a mental game of, I can do this, it's just water in front of my face.
I asked Tracy if she wants me to take the last couple pictures of her. We're nearing the end of our trip, and
gosh, it's just so beautiful.
you can tell everything's really waving or weaving in the waves now. We're holding on to the guide to.
Ruth had to pull my hand up there, and I was really trying hard to hold on to the ground. There, I think there was. Oh, there's a juvenile.
On the left, you can see the blue on the tail.
And I think Ruth was pointing out an abalone or abalone at this point. And she was feeding it kelp. She said it's actually a delicacy for this pseudopod-looking creature. One thing I wish I had gotten a better picture of was all of these sea urchins down there. They look like a little pincushion. Great big dark pin cushions right there at the bottom.
So here's the stairs that we came in on, and we kind of edited it out, but this is immediately below the surface, right off the shore. You can see that we're...
Those people have no idea that all of this is right in front of them.
We had been right in front of them, yeah, just a few feet off. It's a protected area. Ships aren't allowed near it. There's our guide near the... one of the...
She was probably 5 feet tall, so if that's any judge of how big those rays are.
Some of our stills from near the end of the dive. And so we highly recommend scuba diving to anybody who's got it as an ambition. Like I said, it's not real great in Kansas, but if you ever take trips, it's a whole new world underground. We heard it a lot in our training videos, but we've both been absolutely floored with the experience, and really recommend if anybody's interested to look into getting scuba certified.
And let's I would really hope that all these kelp are able to live much longer because it was just a beautiful, beautiful world. Anyway, thanks for watching our video. See you next time.